Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. This is the second section to my mega episode, my 46th episode. Baby, I'm back because it has been a long time since I uploaded, so we're getting it all covered. This section is the section where I talk about old cases that we have some updates on. So, number one. There's beautiful Harmony Montgomery. I don't know if you remember the story about Harmony. She was, there was an Amber Alert, I believe, looking for her in the year, was it 2022? No. They started looking for her December 2019. So right as the pandemic was starting. And we, in January 2022, it was publicly known that everybody then was looking for her, and her mom had been trying to find her. Her mom lost custody of her due to addiction, which happens in Massachusetts, and her father was in jail at the time, and so Harmony was in the foster care system and actually thriving. She's blind in, I believe, her right eye, but she was a happy little girl, and they had a son then, also born drug addicted, also taken away, but that son was adopted by local weathermen, this couple who adopted him, and they wanted to adopt Harmony too. They were like, she was, in the system. The brother wanted to see his sister. The mom was making some visits and trying to do her best to get her daughter back, but somehow in the court system, the judge who was in charge got the case, and her father had been paroled, although he was still being looked at for a murder and other wonderful violent acts, and had a rap sheet a mile long. But the judge, in his esteemed and almost retired judgment, decided, yeah, Adam Montgomery looks good. So Adam got custody. They didn't do the due diligence. They didn't do his background checks. They didn't do a home visit. No, they're just like, oh, it's the dad. It's one of those weird slip to the crack cases. He takes her immediately and moves to Manchester, New Hampshire, where he has a new wife. And Harmony, at least while people saw her, understood that he was treating her, and some in Massachusetts, one of the comments made by a social worker in one of his very few visits was that he had unrealistic expectations for a child. So in Manchester, the family members, some of them have said, yeah, like he was screaming at her, like, and gave her a black eye, beat her because she couldn't keep the baby quiet. His baby with his new Kayla Montgomery, his new wife. So yeah, what a great dad. And then she was not heard from, and the mom was concerned. She was having visits through Zoom, and all of a sudden, no, she disappeared. Couldn't get a hold of her. And that was in, let's see. She was actually, see, it's kind of hard because they found out that she had actually been missing much longer, like for 2 years, where her mom was trying to get help and couldn't, and nobody listened to her, and finally, it's just a big fat mess. Well, anyways, we heard about it, it was in 2019 where she went missing. The world found about it in 2022, and then there was searches for her, and her father was arrested for other things related to guns, and he was homeless, and he'd broken up with the one girl and had another girl and was doing drugs with her. The stepmom, Kayla, was also homeless, but she wanted to get clean. She was making deals, I guess, maybe, allegedly, with the prosecution and telling them about things. But then I think he intimidated her, and then she took stuff back and didn't want to say stuff. Anyways, eventually, they did go look where the two had lived together in an apartment and found some sort of evidence, because shortly thereafter, last year, they said she's unalived. Well, so what's new about this case? Just in the week of, when was it? Just this April, early April, they had a joint task force between the New Hampshire folks and then the Massachusetts special emergency team who know how to look in rough terrain, went to look around Revere, Massachusetts, which was where Adam's grandparents are, and it was a long route, 107, in a marshy area, salt marshes. They had like long poles, obviously looking to see if they could hit something. They had gotten some sort of information that maybe she was there. Then they looked on the other side of that road. They didn't seem to find anything, but so we are still looking for Harmony Montgomery. If you know anything, please call the Manchester, New Hampshire police, or the Revere, Massachusetts police, or you can contact, and you have to actually fill out a form. You can't like tweet at them, but you can call or write to the FBI and fill out something if you know anything about where Harmony Montgomery's remains might be. But we are still looking for this poor baby. So sweet. She would have been 5 when she was unalived, we figure. Very sad. All right, our second case update. Case number 4 is Brian Walshe of Cohassette, Massachusetts. You may remember this case. He, at the beginning of this year, January 1st, he said like, oh, my wife is missing. I don't know where she is. She went to work early, and right on January 1st, she found out she had to be there. And then the job actually was the one, she was supposed to be there, I believe, on the 3rd or 4th. And they're like, she worked in D.C., even though she lived with her family in Boston. She would have to make a commute, like an airplane commute. But she made a lot of money doing what she was doing, which was she had gone to work in real estate. She had moved up from being like this high-end hotel person, learning the ropes about hotels, and I don't know how she got into real estate, but she was selling very expensive real estate in D.C. So she had been doing this. She was an immigrant from Eastern Bloc country, and I thought somebody said Syrian, but I thought she was from Belarus. So some Eastern Bloc country she had originally immigrated from. And when she was here, she met this wonderful guy, Brian. And a lot of the shows have experts that were talking about, allegedly, he unalived her on probably January 1st. And again, if you remember the case, he made all kinds of strange telling searches on his son's computer. So, number 1, don't think you're going to use your kids' devices and get away with it. Lori Vela. Not going to happen. The police know that little move. He looked up, like, how long does a body start to decay? How do I decapitate? Like, how do I dismember a body? What can I put on flesh to make it stop smelling? I mean, you know, the normal January 2nd, it's a new year. You want to learn new things type of searches, right? Right. And then we found out that he had made, he wasn't supposed to, first of all, he wasn't supposed to be leaving the house because he was on house arrest because he was waiting for sentencing. He had, committed a little $800,000 fraud by trying to sell fake Warhols. And he actually had, apparently, the real Warhols that I guess he did sell to somebody else, probably for that money, and then also sold a fake pair to somebody in California. And the guy was like, just give me my money back, and he wouldn't. Anyways, this guy, he also was helping his dad get ready to sell a house and then just sold it and kept the proceeds himself. I think that was in Lidwin, Massachusetts. And we also found out, he's embroiled in a controversy because his dad, after that little act, said, you're cut out of the will. And when his dad died, the cousin was the executor of the will. But Brian went to the house and found the physical will and tore it up because, like he saw in the movies. John Thomas will probably ask him about that. As one does, get their lawyering and investigation techniques from the movies. He just tore up the will, thinking like it didn't exist anywhere else. Well, the cousin had a digital copy of the real will, and so Brian was saying like, oh no, there's no will, and I'm the living son. I'm the only son. So, and he started selling all the art and all the antiques, and I don't know why, maybe his mom was divorced from his dad because she wasn't involved in that. And he is a mama's boy. And that brings us to the update. So, Brian, they did find also blood, blood in the trash compactor that had been in his mom's condo that he supposedly was visiting, even though he wasn't supposed to leave. And then he stopped at a Walmart, got a kill kit. Yeah, he's not smart, but he thinks he's smart. He does. So he made an appearance on April 27th, this past Thursday, and he pled not guilty, and his lawyer was trying to make a argument for that he should get bail. And so the biggest new piece of information is that Brian had hired a PI, a private investigator, because he had the feeling his wife was going to leave him and divorce him. And I don't know, why would he think that, besides maybe he was going to be sentenced for jail. So they'd been married 10 years and had 2 little kids, but in that 10 years, he had committed fraud. He didn't really have a real job. His parents had been wealthy. He had sold these paintings that were fake. So that's like international transaction fraud and grand theft, because it was over $80,000 and all kinds of, and then he was trying to steal his dad's, he tried to fake a will. So this girl is getting the picture about this guy. And he's in some financial problem because of all this. She was doing fine, but, she's tied to him now. They were in this $1 million house, but they had been renting it because they had to sell her house that had been in her name that she had lived, that was nearby, which weirdly was on fire right before this all happened, which seems to have just been or right after, but it seems unconnected, but weird, right? Yeah, I don't know. He basically was getting sentenced, and she had apparently told some friends, I'm gonna take the kids, I'm just gonna move to DC. He's gonna be in jail, he was gonna be locked up. What a perfect time to just get out, get gone. And we all know that's the most dangerous time for any woman, when she's planning on leaving a crazy cray-cray. So it seems like, I don't know what the PI found, but his lawyer said, look, he didn't hire her. The mom paid for it. The mom was concerned. And he was saying, no, you're crazy. Go ahead and investigate her. You won't find anything. Right? It wasn't like he just had his mom pay, because he's always looking to get somebody to pay for his way. And his mama seems to be willing to do whatever Sonny Boy wants. So far the mom has not been implicated, but some, like Anna's passport, some bloody things, her purse, I believe, I don't think it was her phone, were found in the trash compartment that had come from one of the places he stopped that day. Everything else had been incinerated because it had been a number of days, because he had obstructed by not telling them. He's like, when she got reported missing, it was January 4th. He had all those days to do stuff, and trash gets picked up, and they had to figure out where he went. And by the time they figured out that the trash had been incinerated, because recycling, we don't want a bunch of trash just creating methane, which is good, but in this case, it sort of helped him a little bit. But anyways, so he's, it was my mom who's crazy, not me. And then, here's the other big thing. I don't know. He's in all this financial problems, all this legal problems, and she had two insurance policies. Want to guess how much for? $2.7 million, almost $3 million, a cool $3 million. Might help get you through the loss of a spouse, right? Well, yeah, they found out about that. And his lawyer's like, no, wait. He didn't need that money because his mom is rich. And I'm like, you mean the crazy one? Like, is she crazy and paranoid and having him, following around his wife? Or is she this benevolent, I'll give you all your money, sweetheart? It's a little confusing. And the judge did not buy it. Anyways, yeah, Brian's going to be staying in jail. No bail. I mean, he should be being sentenced for his fraud case anyways. I don't know where that stands. I tried to look it up. But, Brian, as Seth, in my head I just heard, yeah, burnt. Okay. This is a sad case. We hate this. I mean, everybody's obsessed with it, but it is the Idaho 4. Brian Kohlberger. Another Brian. We had two very bad Brians immediately this winter. We have a Brian with a Y, which is this Brian, and then the other Brian was with an I. Don't marry a guy named Brian, it seems like. Sorry to all the Brians out there. All right. Again, we are halfway through the bottle. Patty's getting a little sloppy. But we have to keep going on. We've got lots of cases. There is too much crime and not enough time. Don't forget to give me a like if you can. And would you please subscribe? It's free. It would be great if I could get more subscribers. I mean, if you want to. You don't have to. I'll still be here telling you what's what anyways. All right. So, what's going on with the Idaho case? So, we had a bunch of legal filings. So, as you know or may not know, 4 Idaho students were murdered in their off-campus housing, and it was insane for a very long time. And what's really weird is their college is the Vandals, which, if you know, is a name that kind of brings about the idea of like crime, but obviously it has nothing to do with it. It's just weird. And it's Moscow, rhymes with Idaho, not like Moscow, which I think I said Moscow. Yes, a grad student in the town just right over the border in Washington, but like a sister city really close by, has been charged. There's a lot of evidence that seems to point to him being around the house, in the house, at least there was something with his DNA, even though it was just a little bit, in the house, on the knife sheath. Seems pretty convincing, right? Anyway, so what's happening? And there's a big gag order on this case because it's a death penalty case, which comes up in this update. And so if you've been watching the Lori Vallow trial and Chad Daybell, you know that when it's death penalty, they give all kinds of, they're very careful about how the legal process goes because they want it to stick. And they know there's going to be an appeal anyways, so they want everything done to the book. So, number one, so the gag order. At first there was a gag order against, like what is in the Trezell and Jacqueline West case. Basically, like the attorneys can't talk and, nobody in the court can talk. Well, this extended to the language of the attorneys for the families as well. And she wrote, the magistrate wrote, including but not limited to. Very bad legal language. Okay, but the gag order went all the way, the media, like 30 media sources, appealed it to the Idaho Supreme Court. And so here's what the Idaho Supreme Court said. And I think the ruling was like 30 or 31 pages, or maybe 13. I could be transposing those numbers. But anyways, the long and short of it is, basically, we're not dealing with this because it has to stand. You didn't ask in the right order. So it's kind of like Mother May I. You have to do things in just the right way or you've got to go back. So they did not appeal first to the person who made the decision, which you're like, well, that's kind of dumb because they made the decision. Why would I appeal to them? They're just going to go, yeah, I was right. Again, if you've been watching the Vallow case with Judge Boyce, you know there's been some appeals to him first because that's what they do. You first appeal in the court you're in, then you go up to the next district court of the state, and then you can go to the state Supreme Court. I believe that's the levels. And then if it's like death penalty, you can go to like the Supreme Court district, and then the federally district, and then to the Supreme Court. With this, and those might only be civil cases. With this, they just basically, they didn't say go back and ask again nicely to the district court, and then once she says no, we'll hear it again. But that's kind of what they mean. So, and to the prosecution, they included a discussion about like, yeah, basically we're still keeping this, but we do see that the language is a bit overbroad, meaning don't put in shit like, and this, and everything else too. I mean, when they say these people are limited, these people are part of the gag order, but not limited to these people. Well, not limited to just them means and everybody else too, and you can't gag the whole world. So, the magistrate judge then got a little clue there that maybe she should tighten up her language in the gag order. So we will see, I think Monday we would probably see that happening because the magistrate is a lawyer. She will get her language tighter. And I think first, if it hasn't already happened, that the media will make their appeal to her first and get ready then to go back up. So that was one thing. The second thing, the prosecution team filed for help from the Idaho Attorney State General's office. So what does that mean? Everybody's like, ooh. And immediately the Attorney State General's office said, yeah, you can have 2 assistant Attorney State Generals. Yes, these lawyers for the state, they can go help you because prosecution is part of the state system. So it also allows the resources of that office to go down and help this prosecutor in Moscow. Do you remember the prosecutor in Moscow? He looked like Santa Claus. And it was kind of clear at first, both he and the coroner were kind of saying crazy stuff. Not crazy stuff, but you can tell like they were not used to the national spotlight. They were just talking like normal people, not like people in the national spotlight that know to shut up and don't say anything because it's going to end up in court. And you're going to look biased. And you know what I mean? You just can't be a normal person saying your normal thoughts if you're a prosecutor or a coroner, like any public office. You have to sort of like, which is why I will never be in public office because I would say my feelings. And you can only do that if you're funded by the Koch brothers or somebody similarly. Ergo, one of the last people we had in power who could say crazy stuff. But really, in normal situations, people who are in the public eye have to be careful about what they say. And in small towns, people just talk to one another like they're people. And at the beginning of the Idaho 4 case, it sort of put the prosecutor and the coroner in hot water. They were saying too much. They were enjoying the spotlight a little bit, as one does, like YouTubers going, just asking for it. So, yes, that was problematic. So people are like, what does it mean? What does it mean? It probably means that guy needs some help. He needs some expertise. This is a huge case. There's 4 murders, maybe by somebody who either is a serial killer, could be a serial killer. He's definitely a mass murderer, allegedly, if he did it. He's presumed innocent at this point. But I mean, this is a very serious case, a very serious crime, and they need all the help and expertise that they can get. And it's not just a small town, college town prosecutor's gig. So, yeah, they're getting the help. They're getting the resources, which they probably need. Because as all the lawyers have pointed out, the Lori Vallow trial, now they have like 2 county prosecutors. They got a special prosecutor, Rachel Smith, who's used to doing these type of cases, like bigger cases, and they still had problems. And people are like, they should have had a discovery. Discovery screwed up the Vallow case a little bit. And it also screwed up the Morphew case, if you remember the Suzanne Morphew murder, because it was a no-body crime. And they charged him way fast, which was nice. I mean, it was within a year of the crime, but without a body. And then they made all these mistakes. It was the same thing. It was a small jurisdiction with a small, not hugely experienced DA who made all kinds of like errors, which when he could afford to hire the very best lawyers, mattered. So, and Brian Kohlberger has good lawyers because he's got state-appointed lawyers, but again, it's death penalty. They made sure he has very good lawyers. So everybody's just getting their ducks in a row and making sure that this case is good and fair on both sides. I don't think it means that they think there's something wrong with the case. or that they're scared. People are like, what does it mean? Are they scared? They need more help? No, they probably need more resources because they want to do it right. They probably want a discovery clerk to make sure the discovery works so they don't get dinged for not sharing discovery, because there's going to be a lot of it with 4 murders, right? So that, and the third thing that happened was, and I'm not going to use the real names of the witnesses because, you know, witness protection, you don't want them intimidated, and the survivors already have PTSD, survivor's guilt, from what is on the interwebs going around. So I don't want to be part of that. And as you can see here are all 5, the 4 roommates, and wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 roommates and the boyfriend. So 4 were unalived, and then the people's faces who blurred out are the ones. One was upstairs who saw somebody leave the residence with bushy eyebrows, and the other girl was downstairs that we have not heard from, and it was assumed it wasn't in the what is it called? You know, the first law talking thing. The arrest warrant, the probable cause warrant, she was not mentioned. So we didn't know what that meant. But now the defense wanted to subpoena her to show up at the June 26th preliminary. They wanted to put her on the stand and question her. We don't know why. There is scuttlebutt on the internet, and this is why they want a gag order. A PI hired by the defense has been running his mouth apparently saying, oh, there's exculpatory evidence that I found. Okay, number 1, you're part of the case. You're part of the defense team. You're under a gag order, mister. So ask the F you. Oh, sorry. Did that make sense? That was my dyslexic way of saying, you know, shut the front door. Which he should. He's under a gag order. He definitely falls under the gag order. And this is why. So now everybody, it intimidates the witness. Well, it has been worked out, we found. And we found out this, like she wanted to be subpoena. Well, a subpoena is a filing. So that was part of the public knowledge of the case. And then we found out through another filing that the 2 sides have agreed that since she is living in Nevada now, they will go to Nevada and interview her, which means it's not like, I don't think it's going to be like a regular deposition where there's like a court reporter, she's put under oath, they tape her. She apparently has horrible PTSD. Another reason why not to say her name. We don't want to add to that. So, yeah, that is what is going on. And what do I think is happening? Why do I think he thinks he has exculpatory evidence? I'd say 89%, I am sure, it is because he is going to have her say, don't you hear noises all the time? Couldn't it have been anybody? How many people are in your house all the time? Maybe he found out there was a thing. Maybe when she found out, she immediately said, it's so-and-so's boyfriend, or I know it's this guy, or I think, like, she may have made some exclamation emotionally and blamed somebody, and he's gonna say, well, that's not Brian. I think he's definitely going to try. I think it's about making the witnesses look like their doors were wide open, they never had closed doors. It really could be anybody. I don't think it's really exculpatory because we already know this. And I don't think it's new information unless it is something that she said. Maybe she was thinking through at first before they had a suspect. Who could this be? And they were coming up with people. That might be it. But again, is that really new information? I think that's what it is. My dog's going a little crazy. So anyways, that is, there is one final thing. They're fighting, not fighting, but I don't even know what side it is, but somebody wants Brian's records from, and probably the prosecution, from the school, and he worked for Pleasantville Schools, if you remember. He went there, and then he worked there as a security guard, and there was this story about how he helped save some woman's life. So, I don't know which side wants his records from his job and stuff there, but apparently the school district was like, well, we have a policy, we have to talk to the person first. I'm like, oh, you're going to ask Brian if his records can be made available? And lawyers and Ellie people have said, look, that could be subpoenaed easily. So they are definitely going to get that information. If you're wondering who I depend on for this case and this information, it was Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and I also was listening to Duty Run, and also STS, Surviving the Survivor, had on some lawyers. Okay, I believe we have 2 more cases that are updates. Our 6th case and one of our updates on a past case for you guys is, so last time I uploaded, I believe that was the first time we talked about this beautiful little boy here who is presumed unalived at this point. He is 6 years old. He looks tiny in this picture. I'm not sure when the picture was taken. His mom has lots of kids and with different men, and that's okay. We're not making any judgment, but she had gotten, I think at first though, the children that were living with her, which were 4 other children besides Noel, they were all older than Noel, and they were all typical children. It's not clear who, Noel's father was a Mexican national who was deported. We know this because she said he was with his father, a la like a Lori Vallow excuse, and they found out no, he wasn't with her. She had a new husband, again, sounding familiar, Arship Singh, who was a Indian national immigrant here in Texas, and it's very much of, I don't like stereotypes. He was an Indian here working in a convenience store, and the new news in this case was that we all wondered how could they afford to fly out of the country. They didn't seem rich. She was this woman who had this history of like even drunk driving with their kids in the car and having accidents, and she had been homeless, and the guy whose house they lived behind in like a little house made out of a shed, that guy had taken her in 10 years ago. So before she had some of these kids and before Noel was born, and let them live, he was like a lonely old man and let them live in his house, the extra 2 bedrooms, because he felt sorry for her. And so she just continued living there until she met this Arship and got pregnant. She had twins. Well, so what we know now, because we knew that the whole family took off quickly to India via Turkish Airlines after the Texas Department of Family Service had come to check on Noel's a wellness check from a relative. They hadn't seen him for a while, and that check was made March 21st. So here's what we learned since that time. So the update was that they locked down the timeline after further investigation. So now they believe that Noel disappeared 1 week after the twins were born. That was in the last week of October in 2022. And previously to this, we had found like she didn't like to feed him or give him water because she didn't want to change his diapers. Basically now she has new babies. She didn't want to do that. Like, she was big and pregnant with twins. Like, she knew basically that she was going to be finished here. On November 1st, the mother began obtaining passports for every family member except Noel, who we assume was unalived in October. Again, after that, we know that the Family Department of Family Services in Texas, they're from Everman, Texas, they were alerted that Noel was missing and hadn't been seen since October, and they were making a visual check on him, and they visited his family on March 21st. That's when his mom said, well, actually, like, I've had these twins, and he went to live with his father, who is in Mexico. Go figure that one out, right? That'll take some time, which it did. So they accepted that. Oh, that's where the kid is. They went to tell the family that. Well, in between that time, Arshdeep then, that night, after they visited, used a credit card and purchased the tickets on Turkish Airlines to Turkey and then on to India. Then the next day, on March 22nd, he went to work. He worked for a convenience store company, and he was in a position where he dealt with finances and deposits. He fraudulently put in the wrong amount on the deposit slip of what was made. Then he took $10,000 in cash. Then he went to the bank. He deposited $8,000 of that $10,000 stolen into his personal account, kept $2,000 probably for travel expenses, and that night, I believe, or that early that morning, they were gone on an airplane. Then on March 23rd was when the family member said, no, you need to, that's not true, whatever. They started looking into it further. The family was disappeared. They checked in Mexico. By March 25th, then they alerted that the family van was gone, so they put an Amber Alert out for the van and for Noel. They found the van. I don't know if it was parked at the airport, but anyways, Noel was not in it. Again, assumed unalived. So they left the family left that night before the authorities even knew they had skipped town. They were internationally gone. Yeah, so sorry, I'm just reading a note down here. Oh, just the whole, the man in Mexico said, basically, I never met Noel in person. Like, she had just, what a lie. A big whopper. So, yeah, so the new information is that now we know about the money. So that's Arshdeep depositing the stolen money. That's how they are going to live, I guess, in India. And, yeah, they didn't take Noel and no one's seen him. So, unfortunately, we assume the worst. All right, our last update. Oh, my goodness. And we're going through this. We're up to case 7 out of 10. Will the bottle of spumante last? Good thing it's low alcohol. All right, case 7. This is our last update. I have a little justice thing up here because it's moving into trials, but actually no trial. What do you mean? So in the last updates about the Rust movie shooting that Alec Baldwin was part of, I had told you that at first, the first change was, look, the special prosecutor that they had hired had put on this advanced gun sentencing that then his side said, look, that advanced sentencing enhancement, that was passed in the legislature after this occurred. So, no bueno. And the first blowback from the New Mexico prosecutor, the special prosecutor, was like, yeah, well, rich people think they can do anything just because you're a celebrity doesn't think. And then the next day she had to like eat her words. It was like, oh yeah, yeah, that enhancement, yeah, you're right, okay. And then the next thing that happened was, I believe I told you this, they said, yeah, but the special prosecutor is also part of the legislature, and that is 2 separate branches of government. The executive branch, like prosecution, the state government, and then the law, the legislative branch. You can't be both. I mean, I looked it up. She was not the person who like introduced and passed that enhancement law, because that would have been something. That is why this exists, that you can't be in both. You have to have separations of power, because somebody could be like, oh, the celebrity did this crime. Well, let's make it 5 years. Let's pass that law. Okay, now I'm going to go over there, that case I have, and now it just got better. I mean, you can't do that. And that's why that you can't pass this. So, now, all the charges were dropped. And you're like, Patty, what? What? Does that mean he's not in trouble? No. Okay. And just like I mentioned Barry Morphew before, there's all these rules about statute of limitations, and also the rules, the statutes about how long you have, the limits you have from charging somebody until like when they plead, how long you can hold them without something happening. There's all these rules, like a whole book of them. That's why you have to go to law school. There's so many rules. And then there's Then there's the cases about how the rules are applied that you have to memorize, which are different in each state and different for criminal instead of civil. It's a whole thing, which is why law school, surprisingly, is only 3 years. It should probably be more. That said, I mean, which is probably why that lady made so many big errors. They had to drop it because they were coming up on a May 3rd preliminary hearing, and what they said was that, hold on a second, that they didn't have, oh, I like this word. I learned this from Emily D. Baker. It is called a Noel, a Nole, it sounded like mole to me, a Nole prosecui. A Nole prosecui. Nole prosecui. It's Latin. Everything in law is Latin, or most of it is. Okay, so what is a Nole prosecui? Well, it's like, we no prosecute you. We're not going to do it. What she said is it's really like a delay. Instead of, it literally is no more prosecution, but she said really it's an inability to prosecute at this time. So basically they have to do more investigation. Now, Hannah, I'm going to say her name. What is it? Hannah something Gutierrez. Hannah, what did I just write? Hannah Gutierrez Reed, or Hannah Reed Gutierrez. She was the armorist, the person in charge of the guns. Now her preliminary hearing, she must have waived the limitation because she is still having a preliminary hearing, but now it's going to be August 9th, I believe. But why? Why did they not keep her May date? I think, personally, if you are following my coverage of this and what I'm getting from everybody, I really paid attention to the gossipy stuff. And at the beginning of this, there was a lot of gossip about the set wasn't being run to the satisfaction of the workers, and they were pissed. And they had made complaints, I think, or maybe they hadn't made formal complaints, but they were angry, right? And Alec Baldwin is the star and the producer, and so, they're mad at him. And there was this group that also hated Hannah because she's a Nepo baby. Her dad is an armorist. In fact, she was hired because of her dad's reputation. Her dad had the prop house, and she's much cheaper because she's very young and less experienced, right? But they figure we're getting this great guy's daughter. She's learned from him. But these people on set were known to be, as far as I know, allegedly, very grumbly about her. Like, oh, Nepo baby, sure, whatever. So I think the question has been, this whole time, let me take a drink. Tell me what you think. Oh, also, please like and subscribe. All right. Who brought the live rounds to set? Now, some people said, well, people were shooting guns for practice. Okay, who? And not only that there were live rounds, who was putting live rounds in guns? Who? Hannah Reed, Gutierrez Reed, I can't say her name, she had a box of dummy rounds. She loaded the guns in the prop area. How did live rounds get in there? Was someone angry? Now, supposedly the OSHA for the state, the practices of like how a business is run, the health and safety practices, wrote this big long thing of how bad everything was. Okay, but it wasn't just a mistake. Live rounds weren't supposed to be on set. Who brought them? And who got them into a prop box that Hannah used? Who? There was also like, oh, it just happened that the monitors weren't running. So she didn't even know they were shooting and using a prop inside of the church, this church, that she would have normally known. So who cut the feed? The guy who cut a deal, what is his name? Dan somebody? I wonder where he falls in this, like, people who were angry at Baldwin, people who were angry. I think there were two specific people angry with Hannah, and one of them was because she didn't get the job as an armorist, or he. So I am telling you, the investigation, I think, has always needed to be, how did live runs get put in that gun? Was it on purpose to make a point? Maybe not to kill somebody, but was it to get back at Hannah? Was it to show, oh, you think you're so great because you're dad? Was it to be like, yeah, Alec, it's a real safe set? I think, knowing human nature, knowing that there was grumblings on the set, allegedly, I think it is a very good possibility. Like, that was the crime. Somebody decided to take matters into their own hands and make these two people who they felt could do no wrong and were on their high horses, oh, they were going to knock them down a peg, and they just happened to kill somebody in the process. Oops. That's what I think is being investigated, because that is the crime here, people. Was it done on purpose because people were so upset with Hannah, with Alec? Because it's weird that those are the two in trouble. It's weird the one guy's like, oh, I know I handed him, why was that one guy handing him a gun? I don't even think that was his real job. I think Hannah, the armorist, was supposed to hand the gun. Like, they didn't do anything by the book, and the one guy's like, oh yeah, I'll take a deal. And by the way, his deal to testify against Baldwin was for 6 months. And now Baldwin, probably, if he gets indicted, he won't be in court in 6 months. So does that run out? I don't know. That guy, his deal's awfully different. I mean, like, I want to know who was angry on the set with whom and who brought the live rounds. That's what I want to know. All right. We shall find out. So for now, Alec Baldwin is filming in Montana. I don't know. Emily D. Baker's very angry at that. I'm not so angry because the director who was shot, I want to say Halia. That's my dyslexia. There's like H's and L's and A's. And what is her name? Her husband settled his wrongful death suit, and he is a producer on the Rust movie, and so he is going to be making money, which I think is a good thing, because it helps her family, gives her an income. He's named as a producer. I don't think he actually does anything. I think he'll just make money. So, am I interested in seeing the movie? I don't like Westerns. I am okay with Alec Baldwin. I thought he was funny on 30 Rock and on Saturday Night Live. But, yeah, do I want that family to make money? Yes. Oh, there's also a lawsuit that Gloria Aldred is like, don't forget that he's wrong and he hurt these people, and it's her mother, her father, and her siblings, of the adult director who was married and had a child and a family. And honey, was she paying your lifestyle, or is this just a money grab? Because, see, being a celebrity isn't always good. Sometimes people just sue you, like Oprah was sued, Taylor Swift was sued. Not because they did anything, but because, they're rich, they'll throw money at the problem. Look at Gwyneth Paltrow. How'd that work? So, don't go after people just for money. It's bad mojo, bad karma for you, and, it's just stupid. All right, so that is our update on our old cases. We're moving right along. Next is our 3 trials. All right. Like and subscribe.